Many of you are parents of children who struggle with their schoolwork.
We have invited Dr. James Fadigan to explain the programs he offers at Learn to Learn.
Whether you are 9 or 90, find out about Dr. Fadigan's fun brain exercises.
Coming up right now on The Good Life. Stay tuned. Welcome to The Good Life. I'm Ken Mike Soul, and I want to introduce my temporary co-host today,
Your
Carolyn
sidekick.
Pankella.
Yes.
Good to have you back with us.
I am always honored to be sitting beside you.
Well, you are such a fun lady, and Barbara, by the way, is up. She and Tommy are helping their daughter move into the dorms and all the things at Harvard, by the way.
Harvard?
Yes.
Wow, I'm very impressed. It's the big time for all of us. Our kids are heading back to school.
That's right.
Lots of boo-hoos and yet excitement in the process, you know?
That's right, that's right. But it's always good to have Carolyn here with us, and we spent some time with you and Sean the other day, and you've got 3 of the most beautiful children I think I've ever seen.
What?
Except for my grandkids.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, well, I'm a little prejudiced. I do think so, too. It's everything I ever wanted out of life. It's just incredible. And we love anytime we get to spend time with you and Kathy, so it's great.
We really appreciate you being here with us today. And by the way, Barbara's going to be speaking at the Women's in Touch Luncheon at Killarney Baptist Church on September 21st. It's going to be held at the church at 701 Formosa Avenue in Winter Park. And if you need more information, you can call 407-293-0450. And it's going to be from 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. And you can go to call that number to get more information. Again, Barbara will be speaking there. And also, I want to make an announcement today that we're going to be starting a new show on TV 45. It's called Real Conversations,
yes.
And Carolyn Pankella
yes.
and Larry Langston are going to be hosting that. It's going to be on Thursdays at 9 p.m. starting September the 30th.
We're going to have a lot of fun. You know how I like to have a lot of fun, and I like real conversation, and then we're going to just inspire people to know how we can touch the world.
That's right.
That's what it's about.
A very good program. You want to make sure that you mark that on your calendar. And so anyway, we're thankful that you're joining us today, all of you that join us every day at this time. And of course, to those of you that might be here visiting from around the world, you're staying in our resort hotels, welcome to this program. We're going to have an interesting subject today.
Very interesting subject. Anything about the brain is interesting to me because I need help with my own.
And so we have Dr. James Fadigan is going to be here with us today. And Dr. Fadigan, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My
pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all. Where are you from originally? And
well, you gave me the punchline. Originally, I'm from my mother. No, originally from Philadelphia, born in Philadelphia. A little later in my life, about 6 years old, moved to Atlantic City, New Jersey. And then moved all around, really, and going to school. Went to school in a bunch of places.
And you ended up here in Central Florida.
I came down here early at Florida State. If there are Seminole fans
There's a few
here,
Seminoles out there, I think.
Okay, and came down to Florida State, and that's where I ended up getting a PhD. So I stayed there for a while, and then went up to Boston and got a master's up there. So I hear someone going to Harvard, and great area. But it's been great, and mainly my life has been around Florida. It really has.
That's great.
In and out, but around.
Well, tell us what Learn to Learn does. Just give us the information about Learn to Learn.
Well, the first thing I'll try to avoid is I am an egghead. That is, I have my background is in the ivory towers and academia for a while. But the advancements, my background is really in psychology and then later postdoctoral neuroscience, and that is the brain. But my focus all the way along has been the brain and how it learns. And I've looked at it from a number of angles because I was lucky enough to be placed in places like NYU Medical Center with stroke patients, et cetera, watching the brain. And over these years, I am, as you can see from the gray hair, I've been around a while. And the advancements that we have made in understanding this thing that all of us use constantly to do everything, really. The advancements we've made in the last 20 years in particular are absolutely astounding. So, but for the listening audience, I would like to pass on to you, and I think the evidence supports me, that those advancements are almost all very positive. Because some of the old myths that we had about our brains and the fact that we didn't get developed early, and in early development certain things held us back were genetically, we used to think we were stuck with that for life and that we had to just compensate for our children or not be able to do, and that was really, really frustrating for parents. The opposite is known today, and I emphasize is known. The evidence is overwhelming that the brain throughout your life is capable and wants to, works with you if you want to improve its capabilities. And my area of interest has been the brain and how it learns. But if you're talking about any child or adult for that matter, the older adults that find their memory is slipping on them, anyone can improve their brain's functioning, which means their intelligences, which we only recently have found out, and also their, what's even more basic, their brain integration, the way the brain functions.
What is brain integration?
Good question. Brain integration, I think that if you picture, you have 3 children.
Yes,
is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Well, as a mother of 3 children, all mothers, but we males cannot identify with this. When you during gestation, when that child is developing, now there's a miracle.
Yeah.
You know, a little egg and sperm get together, form a zygote, and boom. The brain development during that period, 100 billion cells, all
Wow.
perfectly line up to form this most complicated and as best we understand, this unbelievable thing called the brain. We do nothing. We don't know how it happens. The cavemen didn't know, but they had the brain formed. Now, now here's brain integration, your question. The brain forms perfectly, and someone else has directed all of that for us, and I think we know who it is, but anyway, whoa, there it is. But the child is born. Now it arrives in the world, and it hasn't, the ears haven't heard anything, the eyes haven't seen anything, the tongue has, on the olfactory bulb, the nose hasn't smelled anything. You see, all the senses are there to be used and to interact with. This is brain integration. How does that brain now learn? And it is a learning process.
Okay.
It has to experience this world. The first thing it experiences is gravity. How do you kind of balance and gravity? So that is brain integration. How that brain then wires up to handle everything that it's going to be asked to handle in the world. And that usually, now hear this, naturally occurs if we help it, and environment helps it. It naturally occurs in about the first 28 months of life.
Can you really reteach your brain how to learn? I mean, is that really possible to do that?
That is the absolute most critical point that I want people to understand. We really, as recent as maybe 30 years ago, almost all the literature was saying, no, you can't really do much about that.
Right.
Oh my goodness, absolutely you can. Absolutely, this is the good news, no pun intended, but this is the good news because the brain is so capable. If you help it, it needs a little direction from you, but if you help it, the brain wants to do it better, wants to integrate better, because the brain is like a little puppy dog. It just wants to get its reward. And where a puppy dog gets food, the brain gets little endorphins and dopamine and rewards from doing things and succeeding at things. So everything is working for you. What we have learned in science is how do we help the parents? How do we help the children? But how do we help anyone that wants to improve their brain's functioning?
At what age should you start really teaching a child to read, or the ABCs and numbers, and how do you help that brain to develop in your child? And at what age do you try to push them?
Well,
or do you push them?
And I would say there are two sides to that question. One is that we want to provide the brain with every opportunity, and I'll discuss what those things are that generally the brain wants to receive from you, the parent as well as the child directing it. The other side is the negative side of be careful and take into consideration. Well, let's go to the first side, that the brain needs you to, in the first 3 years of life, what really wires the brain, or brain integration, is play. Play, movement.
It's that important to sit down and play with your children.
And to allow them to be creative in their play. Now, the brain, hear this, the brain has not changed for whatever the number of years are that we've been around with the brain. The brain has not changed. The cavemen, we were a caveman agrarian society and farmers and things, and the movement was all there. Naturally in our environment, we encountered the things that we had to do. But all of a sudden, industrial revolution, inner cities, we have totally altered our environment. Play has not changed since the beginning of mankind. So play is the brain directing the child what it wants the child to do in order for it to integrate. So play is, and movement, play, therefore movement, is critical to integrating the brain. But our environment has curtailed insurance companies. What are we with? Play, art, and music are clearly established as three of the important things in developing brain integration.
And so that's for all ages too.
All
now,
ages.
As this aging process goes along, and many of us that are over the 50s and 60s,
Speak for yourself there, Kinky.
you start, well, the names don't come quite as quickly as they used to, or things like that. How do we continue to feed the brain and to continue to develop the brain even in the aging process?
You want more good news?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The old idea that dementia, allow me to do this. Dementia is a word. It's a big fancy word out of Latin and Greek, and what it is a shorthand for people in the professions to say, oh, so if something starts happening to the brain, we give it a word, but giving it a word doesn't explain what's happening. Now, dementia, or the fact that our memory, we walk in a room and say, why did we come here? Or walk in the room and say, do I live here? I mean, that's even worse. But the point being that we see these things, these behaviors, and we throw a label on it like dementia. Go away from that. Because if the brain, as we are understanding now, the real estate in the brain is extremely valuable. And the cells of the brain are little neurons. And what happens is if you stop doing something and exciting and challenging the brain in that area, other neurons or other things you're doing, those neurons will take over that territory. It's really an interesting concept.
Really
Therefore, what do older people do? Well, when they were in school and working, they were using their memory all the time and challenging their memory. But now they get older and they start pondering the past and memories and stop doing the things that are necessary for the brain to stay sharp. And therefore, you deteriorate your recent, immediate, and working memory, but you remember all these things from the past. You say the brain's functioning, but it's just taken over different real estate.
Well, for those of us who have young kids and we're watching them get in school, and some of them, you see them have challenges in different area. And, I just want you to explain a little bit how your program, I went online to see a little bit, because you bring the kids in and you check them by having them put on glasses and read and see how their eyes work and stuff like that. Explain how this process, how you check it all out some.
Well, the both of you, because I got to talk to you a little about your family, et cetera, are the perfect examples of getting down to nitty gritty here for parents and for, I'm one of them, the elderly people that are, this is our life, and our brain is the center of everything. Now, if you take the children that are struggling, I really make a plea for them. I've been across this country the last 17 years, and what's happening out there, no one is bad, no one is doing this intentionally, but we have inherited this pattern of doing this. A child struggles in school and with some kind of learning or some aspect, and we'll go to the children at the moment. And what our system is set up to do is to simply say, okay, let's label that child.
That is so
Let's just
true.
label that
Yeah.
child. Let's give, like dementia, let's give that child ADD or ADHD. Let me go on record as a scientist saying that the ADD, attention deficit disorder, and ADHD, come out of a book called the DSM. The DSM is nothing but it says right in the foreword of it, it's nothing but a set of classifications for convenience for professionals. It isn't really a deep diagnosis. Some of the categories in the DSM are, but the kids get labeled with this. Now, the people in education have a tough job. They have to take 58 million brains and develop them. So if the child is struggling, they didn't have a background in psych or in neuroscience, so why would we ask them? We wouldn't ask them to do the dental work on the children.
That's right.
But why are we asking them to, so they go with whatever the people out there are telling them if they send them out for a diagnosis, and labels are being thrown on children like ADD, ADHD. But they're really flimsy labels. They really are. And therefore, the child gets a label. The parent thinks that the label means something too. The educators in the educational system, now let's take the child. The child is sitting there saying, why am I having trouble understanding this or doing this? The child starts to blame themselves. Now
Self-esteem goes down.
Exactly, and the child gets guilty and starts withdrawing from the task. And we then start labeling them as processing disorder or attention. They can't pay attention because the brain has a mind of its own. It's withdrawing from something that it hasn't been properly integrated to do. So don't blame the child. Say we have the sciences out here, have the capability now of helping that child. It's new, but we have to get it to more children. We have to get it to more children.
Are there tests that you can actually give to the child that,
Absolutely.
that actually define what their disability, if there is a disability, might be?
Well, I would like to address that by saying it is a disability in terms of what you're asking the brain to do. If you're in school and you're having trouble reading, it becomes a disability because you're asking the brain to do that. But it could be just due to learning differences. The brains do act differently. But we can actually go in our program. We bring the child in and you see it. If you're a parent, we show it right to you. We have balance as our main way in which we determine whether, when we call areas of the brain in and ask the child while he's balancing or moving, ask questions and bring different areas of the brain in. If that child gets off balance or has trouble doing it, immediately we know we need to hook that integrative area up better, and we can do it. We turn around, which is very unusual for most psychologists. We turn around and fix the problems that we then identify. So we look at brain integration, make sure that's in order, and if not, we know what the target, we fix it. Two, we look at the intelligences and are they well developed. If brain integration isn't there, they usually don't get fully developed. That's the reason the child's struggling in school. And you mentioned it, the glasses are eye muscles if the eyes can't track. So those three things, if we just went into the schools and checked that out and helped the kids instead of labeling them, it would be enormously better for our country and certainly for the children.
Oh, that's a very good word to end on today. I am so sorry we don't have more time. It's hard to cover a subject like this in a short period of time like this. But if you'd like to get more information about the services that Dr. James Fadigan provides, he's the founder of Learn to Learn. You can go to his website, www.learntolearn.com, and there's also a telephone number, Carolyn.
It's 407-275-5550. And I just encourage any of us who are out there, man, it's tough to know that we just need to know there's hope.
Yes.
So thanks for bringing hope to us today.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dr.
thanks, man. I
Fadigan,
really mean it. Thanks
for
for
the
inviting
services
me.
you provide, and thank you so much for coming to be on our show today.
My pleasure.